we see individuals that are successful working in larger companies. They see a problem with inside that business, and then they go and try to solve that problem with technology, building a business. But you typically don't see an entrepreneur that had a problem inside of his own venture, then starting another company to solve that problem.
To have founded my first tech company and that, to have had the exit we did, and to do it alongside like my dad, which is just what a cool thing to have done, was just so neat for me to experience. And then
there's no longer this hill that you have to get over if you want to build a product. I mean, you can go and do it in natural language, and it's opened up the world for so much more competition, but it's also opened up the world for so much more innovation.
The barrier to entry, which was, I don't know how to build the technology. I got this great idea. I've got this thing,
but I don't know how to build the technology.
But I don't know how to build it. That's gone now.
That
barrier's removed.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Skin in the Game podcast. My name is Saxon Baum, and I am your host for today. Very excited for today. We have one of our new founders in the portfolio, Steven Walchek, the founder and CEO of Liminal, which is a Florida Funders Fund 3 company. Steven, welcome to the pod.
So glad to be here, Sax. So much fun to be able to spend some time with you, and looking forward to the conversation.
Appreciate you. And you are calling in from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, sir. Sunny Denver.
We are in the first round of the NHL playoffs. Avs are looking pretty good. What is the prediction here for the NHL playoffs coming from you?
Are you thinking final game, the Stanley Cup?
I need a Stanley Cup champion. What do you think?
Obviously the Avalanche. And it's going to come down to a 2022 repeat where it's an Avalanche Lightning game. And I'm sorry to say that in 6, the Avs are going to take it.
Avs in 6 beating the Bolts. It's a bold statement, but they have been the best team in the league all year, so I would not put it past them.
No, that's good.
Well, hey, dude, thanks so much for coming on, and really appreciate it. You have a very interesting background, which I didn't even know when we invested in the business. Why don't you talk a little bit about your upbringing and just some of the conversations that you probably had around the dinner table that most people did not?
Yeah, no kidding. So I grew up in the Valley. My father is one of my best friends to this day. We talk every day almost. It feels like, at least. And he's at it again. He's 65 years old. He's the only person I know that is willing to go all in on himself constantly. It doesn't matter the odds. He is very much a never tell me the odds person. Because if you do, it just makes him more motivated to go try. And growing up around a person that has the absolute greatest appetite for risk that you've ever seen just changes the paradigm on how you view risk for yourself. And I would say, like, I'm more risk averse, and this is my 5th startup here, and I'm still more risk averse than my father. And what's really interesting, is we watched. I mean, so my dad started his company in 97, pivoted in 98. He had kind of the infamous Draper Fisher Jurvetson team on his board. They'd invested in him. And I remember, I believe it was Jurvetson that told my dad that if you guys are managed to pull out this pivot and you guys win, I'll eat my hat. And they ended up doing it. So they sold their company to Inc. to me in the kind of the top of the .com boom. And sure enough, at the party to close, Jefferson comes up with the hat, had a little bite mark carved out of it, bites it, chews it, swallows it, if you can believe that. And
that's amazing.
You're privy to moments like that, which are just like these absurd stories in the Valley.
Was he an entrepreneur before the business that he started in 97, you said?
He was. I mean, like he was, I remember him telling me the way he got into it, and I'm gonna butcher his story. It deserves so much more than what I'm giving it right now. But I remember him telling me, yeah, I never grew up as an engineer, but I remember somebody at a golf course knowing that I opened a computer store in Nevada, in Incline Village, Nevada, tiny little, Tahoe, no name town. and some guy at a golf course had said, "Hey, do you know anything about programming me some scheduling software for my golf course with it?" I was like, "Yeah, I can totally do that."
Of course I can do it. What do you mean?
What do you mean? Of course I got this.
That's easy.
And so he said, I bought a book on how to do it, and I did it. And I wrote him a program on doing scheduling for his golf course. And so you just like, there's a, when you grow up in an environment like that with a father whose kind of vested interest is in seeing you take risk. Like he wanted me to do that. There was never a push for me to like,
Never go and work at Google.
Yeah. Don't go work. Well, not even that. Like, don't go do like the route of like go get your degree from Stanford and then go like it was like go take the bet.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first bet I took. I was 19 years old. I just wrapped an internship at a consulting company or consulting firm, and we'd done a project on a company on behalf of an investor that was buying up subprime auto loans at a discount and holding on to them. And then when they would hold on to them, the seasoning would increase the value of those loans. So they buy them at, 70 cents on the dollar, hold them for a few more months and sell them at 80 cents on the dollar. And there was a bunch of banks that did out there. And I remember getting out of that. And this is that kind of like raw, I kind of, it's akin to stupidity maybe, but like it's something like this, the raw naivete. That's it. That's exactly right, Sax. The raw naivete to believe that it's like, of course I could, why that doesn't sound hard. And so this is
anybody can do
the very first business. I grabbed one of my classmates at Pepperdine, a guy named Colin. And Colin and I said, listen, we're going to go start something called Veritum Capital. We're going to go develop relationships with banks, and we're going to go collect subprime auto loans, and we're going to go sell them portfolios of loans that they would have never had access to.
So this was in college. You were doing this.
This is in college. This is my very first company. It was called Veritum Capital LLC, and we literally went and knocked on the doors of, and I kid you not, like the very shady parts of Los Angeles. And these aren't like your like nice dealerships where people buy their normal cars at. These are when people have low credit and they're high risk buyers. They go to specific dealerships that are located in specific areas of the city where it's maybe not want to be seen, and like at night certainly. And we went and knocked on their doors and said, hey, I've got a bunch of relationships with banks. You guys are issuing loans. Do you want me to go sell them for you? And sure enough, I kid you not, they would hand us a stack of paper, a foot tall, and say, cool, here you go. And we would
figure it out.
And here's what in my head, I don't know what to do with this. Like,
what happened with this business? Can you
imagine? Could you imagine getting, first of all, like the regulatory violations that are occurring is just like, this is all people's socials and blah, blah, this is unbelievable.
There is serious data flow that should not be coming out of these places.
Not at all. And so we would get these stacks of paper, and we had built relationships with 5 different banks, and I would literally spend an evening feeding it into a fax machine. And then we would put it into a spreadsheet so that we could send it out. And then they would say, hey, we're interested. We want to see the loan docs. So then we would have to feed them into a fax machine. And we bought this cheap fax machine. It would take us like 6 hours to send these things out.
It would take a half hour per document. I remember those fax machines.
Yeah.
You would put it in.
Yeah. You killed a robot. You had to slay a robot to turn it on. Like it was
100%. It's taking down half the grid just turning that thing on.
100%. So that's what we did. And like, I remember, I was sitting, we lived in this little apartment complex, and I was sitting by the pool one day with my buddy Colin. And I said, this is embarrassing. Like we're getting 2% cut of any portfolio that was bought, which, a couple grand here and there, for a little side hustle that we were doing as we were considering, as we were going through our college journey. And I was like, God, there's got to be a better way. We should go do something about this. Let's go build a company that can go and, digitize this whole process, create an auction where banks can go bid on portfolios. And so we ended up putting that business together, and we called it, like, an awful name at first. It was called Global Debt Exchange, or we called it GDEX. And then I went to my dad, of course, because who else am I going to go to? This guy's a master at doing this, and said, hey, what do you think we should call it? And he goes, you should call it Debt Market. And he's like, I'm going to run it for you. And I'm like, cool, let's go do it. Let's go get into business with my dad. And so we did. We raised a bunch of capital, and we ended up selling that business to Intercontinental Exchange, which for those that don't know, are the owners of the New York Stock Exchange. And we became the platform for what is now a multi-billion-dollar business for them. Now they bought like Fannie Mae and MERS and a bunch of other stuff, but it became the foundational technology that they built their ICE mortgage technology on. It's pretty
So
cool.
it's interesting because you, as an entrepreneur, had a problem in a business that you started. You saw a bigger problem that then started a business to solve that problem, and that was successful. Because we see all the
Totally.
time, and you know this, we see individuals that are successful working in larger companies. They see a problem with inside that business, and then they go and try to solve that problem with technology, building a business. But you typically don't see an entrepreneur that had a problem inside of his own venture, then starting another company to solve that problem. Sort of like
With
Inception.
with the hubris to somehow believe that at that age, I was 20 years old by the time we started it, that I can go do this. Of course I can go do this.
What do you mean? Once again,
Why
naivety.
why I'm the golf course guy said come code me an app. I got you. Of course I can do
I can
that.
fucking make it work.
So that was like, I so attribute that to, first of all, like, I mean, having the privilege of a father that valued taking risk on yourself is just like, that's huge. Having the connections to go raise capital, having the wherewithal to my 20-year-old brain to believe that I couldn't do it. So I had to call on the bigger guns to help. Like all that stuff was there. But to have founded my first tech company and that to have had the exit we did, and to do it alongside like my dad, which is just what a cool thing to have done, was just so neat for me to experience. And then of course that propelled me into the world of
And
startups. And
did you ever think that after that company you would go back and work in the corporate world, or were you set as an entrepreneur for life after that first success? Well, I guess the first company might not have been a success, but the first real company was a success.
to be honest, I was too naive to know any different. Like that,
Yeah,
that's
and
this,
you
that's
grew
the
up with that
reality.
around you. I mean, that's all that you
I
knew.
didn't know. I didn't know that. God, I remember the very first time someone told me about a sales engineering role. And like when I was at when we were building Debt Market, I was so like embarrassed that I couldn't talk to my engineers that I went to Berkeley and like built out like I went on and did an entire course load on Java and learned to become a Java programmer. Um, and I was an awful engineer, but at least I could speak to my engineers. And there's this whole notion again, like we're just going to keep tapping back into this theme of I can do this. Like that's kind of like the value of this is the belief that I can figure this out. And it is that notion that you can just like believe in yourself, to
Yeah,
bet on you.
whatever it is. Yeah, of course I can code your golf scheduling software.
Yeah,
Of
totally.
course.
Like I of course I can do that. And
Of
what's so
course.
interesting is like, sorry to like tangent here for a second, but like think
No,
about the
this is
play.
great because I've got a whole piece to come back on this, so I'm
Okay,
excited to hear
cool.
what you have to say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool. Like think about like the availability of that now more so than ever. AI has become the great
Absolutely.
leveler. Like for the first time, dude, you got people that are getting into being entrepreneurs. I have my brother has a great friend of his that is not a technical mind at all, but has no business being in running a tech company, but found a problem that he saw with Shopify websites, and him and his wife went out and built an app to go solve that problem. They used Lovable, they did it, it's scalable, it works. And I'm
That's
just sitting
great.
here going like, wind the clock back 3 years ago, that would never be a thing.
Never, never.
Never be a thing.
There's no longer this moat. There's no longer this hill that you have to get over if you want to build a product. I mean, you can go and do it in natural language. And it's opened up the world for so much more competition, but it's also opened up the world for so much more innovation, which is
I
just
agree.
amazing to see.
I agree, and it does. It muddies the water a lot. Everything is AI, and everything is AI built, and
Yeah.
like I know the real tax once you like clear the $1 million ARR mark is how do I do this sustainably? How do I grow
Yeah.
sustainably? How do
Yeah.
I how do I build a business that is profitable, not just profitable, but also has really great margins? How like all that stuff is the where the real work comes, and that like
Yeah.
what's so interesting for guys like you and I, Sax, like I'm 40 now. Like I'm not a kid anymore. There's domain expertise there, but the drive is still there too. And it's so interesting because it's a golden age for guys like us, and gals that are in our category as
Absolutely.
well, where it's like you have great domain expertise and you have unlimited access now to the barrier to entry, which was, I don't know how to build the technology. I got this great idea. I've got this thing
But I,
kind of
I don't know how to build the
machinations, but
technology.
I don't know how to build it. That's gone now.
That's
That
gone.
barrier is
That's
removed.
gone.
And so
Yeah.
everybody who's got
It's a great
that
point.
deep domain expertise, this is a great time to be over 40 and in tech.
Yeah, no, it's
Because
it's a great point. I keep telling myself that it's a great time to be getting old because we have all this knowledge, but we no longer have the moat that, we have to get over in terms of
that's it.
technology. It's interesting though. Uh, I'll never forget when we were looking at Liminal, which I want to get into. We were at sort of this stalemate, right? We were trying to figure out the investment, and I got on the phone with you, and it was really the first time that you and I spoke, and we talked a little bit about hockey. We talked about our kids, which immediately we had like a good vibe on it, and I said, "Are you all in?" And you said something along the lines of like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Am I all in?" Like,
I've told that
I,
story so many times.
you're like, I just wrote this down. I don't want to be an entrepreneur, but I have to be. It's all that I know. It's like banging my head against the wall every single morning, and it sucks. But I don't know anything else, and I love it. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is our guy. This is
I
our
remember it was like I told you, this is the single dumbest financial decision I've ever made in my
I
entire
have
life.
two
Like
kids. I've got
I've
kids and a wife.
I've
This
got
is
a
a
highly
terrible
burdened, I've got a
idea.
beautiful home. I'm making 1/10 what I made back in big corporate. Like this is an awful decision. Like everything is, but you're categorically, I don't know what else to do.
I
Like I'm not,
can't do
I
anything
can't
else.
sit. I can't do anything else. I remember that conversation. I was so upset too that you'd asked me that. Like, am I
Yeah,
all
you're
in,
like,
dude? I live the
am I all
stupidity of my
in?
decision every day. Like, I have to wake up and look in the mirror and be like, what are you doing?
It was one of those conversations that, and we don't get too many of them in the world that we live in because there's a lot of bullshit, there's a lot of fluff, but it was like raw, real, like this is why we do what we do, and it was the truth coming out. And the way that it did was just something that was so special. All right, let's talk about Liminal. So Liminal is the business that you're currently running. You guys have
Yeah.
been running this business for give or take about 3 years at this point. We invested
Yep.
a year ago. I'm sorry, about yeah, a little bit less than a year ago.
Yep.
What does the company do? Give us the rundown, and then let's dive into it.
So, my co-founder Aaron and I, we were coming out of FIS, which is a super large fintech company, runs a lot of the core banking software, had a big payments company that they split off into two. I was the EVP and Chief Innovation Officer there. We ran a corporate venture studio, which was really cool. We launched a bunch of companies out of there. Um, one of the things that was a part of my experience there was having to work through the process of delivering software to regulated organizations who really needed a much higher degree and standard on security when it came to deploying anything. And that was a bit new to me. I'd worked in the
Yeah.
infrastructure world, kind of prior outside of debt market. I went and worked for three different infrastructure startups. Two of those had excellent exits. And then I worked for AWS for a number of years, and then FIS, and so I'd been on the infrastructure side, so I hadn't really like dealt with outside of a couple of different very specific conversations around the infrastructure, dealing with application layer security. And when the kind of GPT-3 moment hit, the jaw on the floor. I always make it akin because we're old, Sax, like to the moment that you first saw an iPhone. Like, do you remember, dude? You picked
Of
it up
course,
and all smooth
dude.
scroll, pinch the
Literally,
zoom, like
my dad brought it home, and I was like, that is gonna change the world. That is
that's
the coolest thing I've
that's it.
ever
You're so
seen.
right too. Like what a
That is so cool.
I remember like going into the Apple store and like watching me be able to zoom on a map, and the pinch to zoom just like rocked my world. I'm like, this is
Rocked.
insane.
Because there was only like
Um,
5 apps on the phone at that point. There was
yeah,
messaging, there was a map, there was a browser that you could go to like 3 websites or else it would crash.
That's
Contact
right.
list. You could only put 100 contacts in
But
there, but there
man, it
wasn't
was
contact
smooth
list.
when you scrolled through your
Oh,
friends'
that thing
names
could go. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and you had a so I'll never forget that and the GPT-3 moment for me was that iPhone moment,
Yeah.
the same impact of like holy, like you had Sax, holy shit, this is going to change the world. That was the first time that I went, oh my God, like, and listen dude, I worked on AI infrastructure. I helped launch
Yeah.
AI
You were
infrastructure
at the
service out of
forefront of
AWS.
this.
So like, but I had not seen this coming, and so all of a sudden I'm playing with GPT-3 and I'm like, oh my goodness, like the world's about to change and I've got to be a
Totally.
part of this. And there's that stupid thing in my head that's like, you, of course you can.
Ding, ding,
Like,
ding, 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 ding,
hey,
ding.
you want to go make a really bad financial decision? Here's your path. Like, uh, and so
Go
I
this
called
way.
Aaron up and I said, hey, I've got this idea that I'm spinning on, where we make it safe for people to use Gen AI in regulated industries. And we had, I mean this genuinely, we had no idea what that meant. Like
Yeah.
at the time, we're like, we just knew, I just knew there was a bunch of CISOs that were gonna be spinning their wheels over how do I
How do we,
grok the fact
everybody
that
wants to use this. How do we use this in
what
a
are we gonna
way?
do about this
Yeah.
and do it in a
Yeah.
way that protects our client data and our internal data as well
Yep.
and lets us be regulatory compliant. And it's such a boring problem to solve, but you know, you talk about like birthing business from inside the business. Like this was something that we ran into time and time
Yep.
again. And the funny thing is, by the way, the former CISO for FIS is also an investor in the company because he saw the same problem. He's like, this is going to be an issue.
Yep.
And I
Full
like the way you
circle.
guys are
Love it.
thinking about it. So it's super interesting. We put together at the beginning, at the start, it was an application layer security platform so that people could deploy generative AI based apps inside of their organization with the application layer, data privacy, observability, governance, and administration.
And
And
this was, I mean, this was pretty early on to your point
oh,
in
this
you
is
know, the AI revolution. So how many companies were coming to you saying our employees are asking for this compared to how many people you were going to saying your employees are using
yeah,
this?
so
Like,
that's a
let's
really great
help you.
question, Sax. The goal for us in the early days is we launched with High Alpha, which was our kind of initial seed
Yep.
round investor or pre-seed investor, was to talk to 100 companies and see if we couldn't figure it out. And here's the interesting part. We put together this package where we would do like a design partnership early on with a couple big companies. And we signed two. And like within 4 months of launching the platform, we hadn't even completed the software yet. We built and signed, 200K of revenue with Eli Lilly and Indiana University Health, which is a massive healthcare system for Indiana.
And a massive public pharmaceutical company.
Yeah,
I mean, like a
like
massive
the
company.
largest
The, yeah.
pharmaceutical company.
Yep.
And we'd done that through talking to their CIO and their AI teams, and we'd gotten some great introductions from one of our board members, and we were off to the races. We were like, okay, we got this, and on the back of that, we were able to raise our first round of capital, and we released our platform to start, and we decided to go to market targeting those large enterprises.
Yep.
42,000 employees at IU Health, you know. However many employees at Eli Lilly. And we went off and we targeted large enterprise and we struggled to sign any of them.
Were these enterprises scared just as a whole to adopt AI, and that was the biggest resistance?
You know, the biggest resistance is that enterprise in most companies is they are not fast decision makers. And they typically make decisions by committee. And to be candid, like we hadn't nailed how we sold our product yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were figuring it out. We were absolutely in the building the plane as we're flying it.
Just like you should have been. I mean, you
And
guys were what,
and
a
so
few months into this.
we were trying to figure it out, and we thought we nailed it. We got Eli Lilly right. We totally had it nailed. Of course
Yeah.
we've got this going, and their CISO was such a great partner to us. She was amazing. And we just couldn't figure it out. We spent a year. We burned a ton of cash. And we spent a year trying to figure it out. And we got to the end of our first year of our product being in market. This was December of 24. And we said, we brought our leadership together in December. And I said, hey guys, we're going to die if we don't figure this out because
Yep.
we're not tapped into the right market. And we don't have product market fit. And we continue down this path. We'll be dead in 8 months. Um, and none of us wanted to happen. So we kind of went to the drawing board and we said, okay, well, what can we do? And we realized that there was a large swath of the market that sat in this kind of 500 to 5,000 employee range. They call it mid-market enterprise, that didn't want to operate a separate security platform, and wanted to leverage multiple generative AI models. And we'd heard enough of this kind of stuff floating around in the customer conversations that we had that we decided to take our security platform and combine it with end user tooling. So you can think of like, you remember I presented it to you guys. I presented
Yep.
it to you guys as like a very secure, regulatory compliant way to leverage multi-model generative AI. It's kind of like combining a deep and detailed security platform with the appropriate governance, administration, observability, and data privacy tooling, and smashing that together with Perplexity,
And
which is kind of
making
this
it extremely
multi-model.
easy for anybody to use and extremely easy for the buyer to understand exactly
That's
what
right.
you're selling.
And we developed three core value pillars. Value pillar number one, we are secure by design. Value pillar number two, we are multi-model, flexible, and offer
Yep.
unlimited access to the latest and greatest models. The top providers, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Perplexity, and Grok. And then the third value pillar was we were going to be really cost effective. We're not training the models. We don't have to bear that price. Let's operate a high margin business, but pass all the savings that we don't have to spend on compute and energy and people and give that back to our end customers. And do that for a price point that was 30 to 70% cheaper than any single model provider platform can do, and have, the vast majority of functionality and all of the security tooling that they didn't. And we're gonna now. So we shifted our product strategy entirely. We decided that we were going to target mid-market enterprise, and we were doing that all in regulated adjacent industries. By we relaunched our platform in March. We churned our
So,
first two
so
customers. We
well,
churned Lily.
that's
We
where I
churned
was going to
IU.
go. I mean,
Yeah,
how, because companies pivot
dude,
all the time, right?
it
We
was
see,
scary as hell.
that's what
Like,
I'm saying. We see the
oh my
pivot, but you
God.
guys raised money on this enterprise product, and then you just cut it. Like, we're no
Well,
longer
dude,
doing
it's
this.
like this is where like you having such a good board around you. I like to say, hey guys, like this is where we are. We made the bet. This bet's not paying off, but we still got gas in the tank. Like we still want to go do something. We can still do something here. Um, they remember that. I mean, you know this. You guys seed invest sometimes
Yeah,
too. Like you're betting on founders at that point. You're not betting on
100%.
the like. You know that you don't have PMF at that point. You got some early
No,
indicators, but God, like you're expecting this, and so you're betting on the people to go and steer that. And thank God we had such great investors in High Alpha and Fin Capital, and a lot of our individual angels as well. They all rallied behind us and said, go get it,
yep.
go do it. And so we relaunched our product in March. It's now April. It's been a year where we generated over $1 million of revenue in our first year of our product being back in market. We've got over 40 logo customers. We have an NRR of 174% right now. Our GR is 100%. We haven't churned anybody. Everyone's renewing. We've got $4 million of expansion pipeline alone in the customers that love us. Like that's discounting the customers that haven't told us they love us yet. That we might know that, but they might be. These are just the people that we're close with, and we're just sitting here going like, dude. And so we also made a couple really early bets too on the channel, and I hired the best channel leader in the world. I mean, we
And
talked
that
about
was
this.
something early on. You had yourself obviously in error, but then I'm forgetting her name, but
Michelle. Yeah,
Michelle,
Michelle.
she didn't come from the startup world, but she came from the
No.
channel world, and you plucked her. And to show that you got somebody that was the head of channel at AWS to come and join you guys on this startup, basically being a year in, I mean, that was a huge signal to
We
us.
worked
Like,
together when I was at AWS, and
yep,
God, for
yep.
8 or 9 years, I had been trying to poach Michelle. For any company I went to, I'm like, I gotta get
Anything
her
that
over here.
was
I gotta get her
Michelle,
over
get
here.
over here.
And she'd heard that call from me so many times, and just the stars aligned. Everything was. She was at HubSpot,
Perfect.
and I was like, oh my God, she was running global channel strategy there, and I was like, look, I need somebody to come run this. And she is a builder at heart. And
Yeah.
she had said to me, I remember this. She's like, if we're going to do this, I want to do it from the start, and I want to do it right. And
It's
if we're going to
time.
do this, we're going to be a channel led company. That's it. Like, we're going to be a channel led company. And I was like, it was a little uncomfortable for me because I didn't know what that meant.
Well, and you're relinquishing a little bit of control too. Like when you're a
Oh,
channel
it's
led company, you're
well,
putting you're putting
you're
some
putting in the
some
partners.
serious bets out there on your partners. Exactly.
Totally.
Yep.
And that's a hard thing to do. Well, dude, I got to tell you, like, our channel partners, this is the single greatest business decision I have ever made, was putting her
That's
in
awesome.
control of that.
That's killer.
We are at the, like, I don't know if you saw my post last week. We're paying $10,000 to anybody who refers us a great VP of sales, $10,000 to anybody who refers us a rep. I won't hire sales until we are absolutely at breaking point, and we are at
It's
I don't
time.
even want hunters. Like, I'm like, dude, our partners are putting 40 qualified opportunities in our pipe every
It's
week
unbelievable.
right now. And Michelle's saying I'm like holding the gates right now. Like, I'm not letting them fully open up the lead flow. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, like, we've got to get people on board that can do this. So
Yep.
it's such a
It's
fun
awesome.
place to be. And listen, I am not calling this a success. We are far from it.
No,
Um,
but the
but
indications that we're seeing and the buyers that are excited. I mean, the number that I just love to hear is that NRR number. I mean,
yeah,
that is just. I mean, dude, that's unbelievable. Wait, I want to talk about. I would consider you somebody that is very cutting edge or even bleeding edge
yeah.
when you look at technology, and something that you brought to me after we invested, about 4 months after we invested, was sort of a little bit of a new way that you started talking about and positioning the product. And it was really all around agentic and this sort of brain that you're building for question and answering inside of an organization, and this foundation that you're building for an organization around problem solving and knowledge. That now sounds typical. Word might be not typical, but common. You hear that more now with everything that Anthropic is doing. But you were all over this months ago. Talk about this piece and how this has played
Yeah.
into just the overall strategy and the way that you're talking about the product at this point.
It's so funny. Like, we deal with like the part of the market that isn't in technology, and or you're on the technology side, we all just live in this bubble, and we think, God, every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm probably behind at something. Like, now I'm like, the ball's over here and I'm now behind it. Every day I wake up feeling that way because I'm reading some post on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know what that is. Like, 3 months ago, I'm like, what the hell is, Claude now OpenClaw? You see all these people posting about it. Why am I not doing with it? And I'm like, that
What am
weekend I
I
built a
missing
Claude.
out on?
That weekend I go to spin up a Claude bot. It's now called OpenClaw. I'm like, oh my God, like, the whole thing is just moving so quickly. And so you live in this bubble and you're like, God, this must be where everybody's at. And I got to tell you, dude, I run a dozen trainings a week for our customers, and their employees are still at the very beginning. They are where we were with GPT-3
They're
two
three
and a
years
half
ago.
years ago.
They're using they're
Like,
using GPT like Google.
totally. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
by the way. And like, I
No,
want
no, no, no. But
to
it's
the
to
people who
your
are
point.
listening, like, this is the starting point. We're at the beginning here, not
Yeah,
the end
totally.
zone. We're not I have to keep reminding myself that, like, while I wake up every morning trying to chase the technology ball, the actual market ball we're way ahead of it. Like,
The
way ahead of
actual
it.
daily business operations is not even close to where the early adopter like yourself or myself is in terms of AI technology.
100%. And
I think
like,
the same thing. I mean, not to interrupt you, but just to give you an
no, please
anecdote,
do.
I think I thought every venture firm was operating and using AI the same way that we were. And I started talking to some of my peers that are at more legacy firms, and I could not believe that even things that we were doing 6 months to a year ago of ingesting a pitch deck and getting information out, they weren't doing. To your
Hmm.
point, not everybody is at the bleeding edge or the cutting edge, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
And in particularly in heavily regulated
Yep.
companies, where CIOs are making the decision to either shut down generative AI access entirely internally, or they have an open license policy, both of which carry extraordinary risk for them.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting employees who they're not using it. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I promise, like this is not based in hyperbole. This is based in like real experience. We train the employees on how to use this. The questions are still the very basic questions that we were asking 2.5 or even 3 years ago.
Yep.
And that's the state of and the regulated segment in mid-market enterprise. That is the current state of end user usage. And anybody who tells you differently is not in the market. Like I'm just letting you know, like I on 60% of my calls still explain what MCP is. You know, like once in a while I get someone like, dude, this is the MCP CLI guy, zeitgeist thing. Like very rarely do I have to like, am I talking to someone who is like up to speed on like modern technology stacks and AI? And all of their employees, even if the people I'm talking to on the phone are most certainly not.
Yep.
So what does it mean for agentic? So like I'm just trying to establish the like here's the baseline for where the
of where we're
market's at.
Yep. Yep.
When we think about agentic, that's in like I think that word's been kind of overused heavily over the last little while. I think it means everything and nothing.
Term.
When I say, yeah, totally. When I think of agentic, I think of automation. Like that's what whenever I say this for the rest of this conversation, when I say agentic, I mean automation. And the way automations are done is, you either have a framework where somebody is saying, here, connect all of these different things to this framework, and then go sequentially navigate an automation workflow or workflow automation based on all these connected resources and throw an LLM in the mix and go. You can imagine the amount of technical knowledge that requires an IT team to have that's typically already strapped in the markets we serve. You'll get 10 IT people serving 3,000 employees. Like these guys aren't going to go out and experiment with agentic frameworks. They don't have the freedom or bandwidth to go do that. But let's pretend you get the bandwidth and freedom to do that. You now have to find a problem to solve inside of that organization with a framework that is ubiquitous and worthwhile from a financial perspective solving. And so what do? Well, let's pretend you're a curious IT person, which you're now putting them way outside their comfort zone in terms of discovery. They've got to go figure out and talk to downstream employees like, hey, what's the biggest problem facing you? And let's say that they're even good at the analysis of that problem, which again, we're talking about an IT team member, not a product manager, not a product owner, but just an IT team guy going out and saying to their sales team or to their call center organization or to name the employee base. Well, then they go and let's again pretend that they've got all the skill to do that. They have to go observe how that employee works to understand the problem more. Well, we know that people behave differently under observation. If you're being observed at work by a boss who's standing over your shoulder, you're going to do everything very differently than you do that in the course of your normal workday. And then, okay, so let's say you then magically go solve the right problem and you've done it and you put all the pieces together with your agentic framework. And then you go deploy this thing. You hope that people use it. But what you've just done is you've required every single call center person to go fit the machinery of that single employee that you observed. Like, talk about a nightmare scenario. Oh, by the way, hopefully you solved the right problem, by the way, because if you didn't, you just wasted a ton of cycles and money on something that didn't work. So that's the kind of like agentic framework for mid-market, issue. The second issue is if you start to move over to like the kind of off-the-shelf agents, you're now kind of ignoring the nuance of the end user's workflow. You're now requiring people to fit the machine versus the machine fitting the people. And God damn it, isn't the promise of AI that it fits our lifestyle, not the other way around? Like we're kind of going in reverse here. And so I get the notion here, and I'm not saying that they don't have a place. Don't hear that, because I do believe frameworks have a place, and I absolutely believe that off-the-shelf agents have a place. What I don't think though is it doesn't solve for the generic kind of middle ground, everyday run-of-the-mill type of workflow automation that every downstream user craves. And let me give you a couple examples of this. Prep me for today's meetings. Do that using historical data from my CRM, pull data from my email, use my calendar to know real-time what meetings I've got today, research the people I've had prior interactions with for my note-taking app, like do all that stuff. Do you know how difficult that is? Go put that together yourself, Sax, and get back to know how long that takes you.
Literally, it would take me hours.
Yeah, hours, which is stupid. And that's, by the way, a curious mind like yours.
Yeah.
Be an employee who's already working 9 to 5 and got a normal job that they've got to dive into every single day.
Good luck.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
No.
Here's what's so cool about that. There is a pattern of behavior that every employee exhibits. every single day when they use generative AI, and that generative AI is connected to their downstream data sources. And we have the ability through our observability layer, which was, pardon me, originally built for security and auditable purposes, to have all of this observability data, all this log data. Excuse me, one second. We have all of this log data that we can access. Well, it was a big eureka moment for us 4.5 months ago when I first called you. I remember I was so hyped up.
You were so hyped up about
I was like, this is huge. Like, we are sitting on top of the single richest data set of behavioral patterns on how people show up every day using generative AI to solve problems and use their data in connections with generative AI. I'd say questions that they're asking, problems they're trying to solve, the business outcomes they're trying to generate. All of that sits in this rich log data that was originally there just for auditability and security purposes. And we started putting a bunch of custom ML around that. And we started to realize, oh my God, we can set the series of actions that people take. We can delineate what those are, and then we can automate. We can self-assemble automations on behalf of that end user. If you go into the platform today, we can observe how you work, identify high value workflows for you, and then self-assemble automations that will take care of doing that for you every day. So if you go on the platform, and I'll have to show you, we built a really cool UI around this. If you go on the platform today and you say, hey, prep me for today's meetings, you do that once and it will go and draw from all those different data sources so long as they're connected into Liminal. It will pull that together for you. And then you can, then you could ask it and say, or Liminal will come to you and say, hey, Sax, this looks like a daily workflow automation. Would you like me to deliver this to you at 7 a.m. every day? And you're going to go like, yeah, I do. Now, that's like a simple use case. Let's go to like a different use case. If you're like an accountant and you do a variance analysis once a month on this thing, and month prior you use Liminal to help you perform the variance analysis, then you asked it to create a deck for you. So you come back the next month and you put this multi-chain of action prompt in, and you say, do a variance analysis for me on this month's this month's income statement, and create a deck for my CFO. And Liminal goes and pulls all that data together and does exactly what you asked it to do because it saw that. And then Liminal comes to you and says, hey, Steve, accountant Steve, we noticed that, yeah, those are two things that don't belong to me.
Put the accountant
Hey,
accountant Steve.
Hey, accountant Steve. We noticed that you did this last month. This is the second month you've asked for this. Would you like us to do this for you on the 8th of every month, a week ahead of when I can see it's due on your calendar?
So instead of you proactively having to build whatever this workflow automation is, the software is learning based on patterns that you're doing and proactively building these automations for you.
Self-assembling, self-improving automations based on behavioral patterns. So we call it behavioral agentic automation. And we're super excited about it because you need that log data, and the big companies, the model providers like Anthropic and Google and OpenAI, they push back heavily on having log data. And what's so neat about this is it doesn't just work on
is that a privacy thing? Is that a privacy piece that?
Totally. Yeah. It's also when I'm retaining your data and I'm logging all interactions, I am now subject to breach. And there were 1,400 breaches in 2025 across the top 5 major model providers already. So you better believe that if they're retaining your data, which by the way, covertly, overtly, illegally, they very
probably
well might be.
are, I would assume. Yeah.
I have good data that says, yes, they are. The government required OpenAI to do it last year. Anthropic openly said in their terms of service alteration that you have to do it. And Google got sued by their Android users in a class action lawsuit that netted $400 million fine to them, which is nothing when for 20 years they've been stealing the data from their end users. Covert, overt, illegal use of data. And there's a huge incentive to remain competitive in the market with next generation models to use your data. So of course they're gonna, but whatever. I'll put on my tinfoil hat, I'm the crazy one.
Sure.
So anyways, lots of cool stuff happening right now. We've got behavioral agentic automation.
So is that like an inherent, kind of going back to how sophisticated a typical user is this now a part of the platform? So if you are using the platform, you're being prompted this way?
Not yet.
Okay.
We've had to put some big data pieces in place.
Yep.
So we very shortly we're about to release the ability to connect over 3,000 different MCP servers to Liminal. So
Okay.
that's a big piece of this is to securely connect in data sources where there's two-way functionality, read-write functionality. Um, and then the next step is we what we built is this really cool analysis layer for pulling apart what are the chains of actions that the user needs to be able to take to automate these workflows. The
Yep.
next piece that we're building right now is the orchestration layer around that agentic workflow component. So the memory is being captured right now, which is really
Got it.
cool.
So the data is
Um,
being captured, but it's not yet being put
it's
into
not yet,
play,
and
but
that's
it's like
where
soon.
we've got a alpha version of this right now. It's really
Yeah.
neat. But we are kind of we're in the testing period on this. We've got to get this
Got it.
right. It's got to be secure.
Definitely.
It's got to be safe.
Definitely.
But we're super excited about it because this
Yeah,
isn't a
I think
matter
it's a
of
huge
when, not if.
differentiator. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
and one question specifically as of late, in Anthropic's the hot model, everybody's using Claude Code,
Yeah,
uh, Claude Copilot. When you
co-work.
co-work, sorry, when you have questions being asked to you, let's just say by an investor, and I know you're not raising money right now, but it's
Yeah.
something that investors ask us all the time. Why can't Anthropic do this? Why isn't OpenAI doing this? I mean, I think I know the answer that you already explained around like we have this orchestration layer that we are connecting, enriched data that we're storing. But what is unique about this? Why aren't these guys going to do what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to kind of lean back on the core value pillars. So, like behavioral agentic automation was an offensive capability for us. To do that, you have to be managing all of the appropriate amount of log data on the back end to be able to develop that organizational and individual memory, that episodic memory that we were talking about earlier, in order to establish that pattern of behavior workflow. They've pushed back heavily on logging the data. They've kind of it's a lot for them to capture again, subject to breach. A lot of other stuff. Now, Anthropic is actually retaining data. They've updated their user licenses to say that they've actually updated their user licenses to say that they're using your data to train their models. They could go very well go and do this. Then you kind of got to realize that like they're still doing it in a way that doesn't secure your most closely guarded
Yep.
corporate secrets or corporate data. So the data privacy, they're not doing it multi-model. Anthropic's never going to offer OpenAI's models. OpenAI's never going to offer Anthropic's models. So people crave the next generation model. They want to, if Google comes out and they race ahead of everybody else with the next gen model of the next Gemini 4, then everyone's going to flock to Gemini 4 for a little bit. And then it's going to
Yep.
kind of continue to bounce back and forth. Our ability to offer that multi-model flexibility and do all of what like I just told you, agnostic of the downstream connected model, is really unique. But to put all the security tooling around it too is something that's uniquely ours as well. And so we tend to win on the fact that customers are looking for multi-model flexibility, but primarily they're looking for security and they want cost efficacy, and to be able to do this at 30 to 60% cheaper than the others is a big deal.
I think you're winning too because of the distribution that you've built.
Oh,
We're
that's a
talking
huge
about
part of this.
we're talking about technology differentiators, which in my opinion is less important these days than distribution and relationships and
That's
trust.
right.
I
And
think in a
customer
world
service. That's right.
going back to a world where anybody can build technology, I say anybody loosely, anybody can build technology products. The core fundamentals of business come back to the points that I think I just said. That has really been what we've seen the companies in our portfolio
Well,
that are most
yeah,
successful.
Sax.
That's the differentiator.
I gotta tell you, like I've talked to so many customers the last couple of weeks about this, or prospects about this. A huge differentiator in working with Liminal is our maniacal focus on customer success.
Yep.
We want our customers to be happy. We include the cost of training in our price. I'm not saying this as a pitch. I'm saying this as I have now recognized how much of an important differentiator this is. If you go to our website and you were to go and read our review our testimonies, you'll hear this over and over again. Liminal is a partner, not a vendor to
Love that.
us. And in the world of AI, where there is so much noise, to be the one that's delivering signal to these people and delivering value is such a privileged position and one that we covet. So much so that we reserve an ample portion of our roadmap. Over 40% of our every sprint's roadmap is just for customer requests, whether they're ad hoc or there's something that's on the roadmap. We do that just to go and say, hey, like we want to delight our customers. We want to continue to earn their business. And I can tell you, I've had multiple people say, I can't even get a hold of my OpenAI rep. But the moment I call Liminal, within an hour, I get a response time. And if I have a feature request that's doable enough, I'll see a feature turnaround in a day. Like it's one of those things where it's like we've been maniacally focused.
But that also shows your experience as a founder. I mean, that shows your experience as a founder, which is one of the major reasons why we love to invest in experienced founders. If you were telling me this when you were 19 years old, I would say sure. But hearing this from you now, after doing this, yeah, exactly right. For 21 years, I mean, it's exciting.
You realize that? Yeah, cool. We're at time. I know.
No, we're at time, but I've got one more fundamental question for you.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Valley. Your dad is a legend in the Valley. You've invested and have been invested in by some of the largest Valley investors like a Tim Draper. You live in Denver. We invested from Florida, High Alphas in Indianapolis, I believe, so a Midwest firm. Growing up in the Valley, you were surrounded by all these individuals, but now you're really in these secondary and tertiary markets. What's the opportunity like for entrepreneurs and investors outside of the Valley? Does it exist to be building unicorns and decacorns, or is the epicenter and the Mecca still the Valley? And how do you, as a native from the Valley, sort of look at that?
Gosh, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm like anti-Valley culture, so like I value, like one of the investors in our company is a fund called Matchstick Ventures, which we think the world of. They invest all in Midwest companies. They are Midwest and kind of Mountain West as well. And just Natty is such a phenomenal partner to us and was early on. I got to tell you, like, I think the epicenter around AI is still in the Valley. The numbers, you go to like Carta's data and you look at what they've done, what they've released, and you can see like the round sizes are so much bigger in the Silicon Valley. The time to close is so much greater than in the Silicon Valley. Like the Valley still stands as the epicenter of funding across the board. However, more so now than ever, there are so many different funds out there that are well funded. And because expertise now is not technical, not much anymore, that's not the requirement. That barrier's been torn down. I think you're going to see a lot more founders emerge from the middle here, where they've noticed a big problem. Their big barrier was, I can't figure out how to build this. And now they can go build prototypes and get customer traction faster than they've ever been able to do that. I don't envy being an entrepreneur in today's world, because, when I was raising for AI at the beginning, there wasn't as much noise here as there is today, right? Like
that was truly the first inning.
There was, and being an AI security platform, I remember when we did our big pitch for our seed round, I had 160 calls lined up in 2 weeks. Like we went back to back, just all day pitching, and we found our investors that came out of that. But like it was not hard to get the first call. I've got experience on my side, and I've got, some connections on my side. So that worked really well. But I do think that the world is getting smaller now more so than ever, because the epicenter, or the reason the epicenter of technology and all the funds are based in the Bay Area is because that was where you got good talent. Yeah. That's where the epicenter of talent was. Well, that talent spread out. Denver's becoming a huge AI hub. Florida, like, you guys became the crypto hub of the world. Like, don't
say that too loud.
I know. Okay. Yeah. Miami's swimming right now, but like, you guys, hey, listen, it had its place.
100%.
And why? 100%. Because you guys put a tax advantage state in there. You guys were able to attract the right talent and right people. Yep. And
we were open. We were open for business during COVID. I mean, that's it.
100% is a big deal. Yeah. And so you look at kind of like, why is it all in California? Well, the epicenter of talent is still there. But I would argue that like Austin, Florida, Denver, like not Florida, Austin, Miami. There's a bunch of places like this,
Absolutely.
That I think New York is a huge hub now, not just for fintech, but for technology in general. Like there are so many of these cities that are coming online, and a lot of these investors like yourselves who are saying, listen, like we're after good companies. We don't give a shit about geography.
Could care less. Yeah.
And I think that's going to continue to play. Now, the harder part is going to be when all of the funds are concentrated into like 10 major funds. And that's a different discussion for a different time. I'm be curious about your perspective when you see,
that's episode number 2.
Yeah.
Where you and I get back on and talk about the future of venture capital.
Yeah, I want to. Honestly, I get to host that one and ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, you can ask me about that. That is for sure. Steven, this was amazing. First off,
Thanks,
congrats on the success with the company at this point. We could not be more excited and more proud to be invested in the business. And congrats on everything else. I mean, there's a huge opportunity here, and I know that you and the team will continue to execute. And when things get tough, you're going to figure it out, because that's what successful, experienced entrepreneurs do.
Well, of course we are. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
We are
cockroaches. We will figure it out.
I can do this. So yeah,
you can make it happen. You can make it happen. You can write software for scheduling in a golf course in the mid-'80s when nobody else could.
Of course I can.
To our audience, thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Saxon Baum. I'm the managing partner here at FLF. If you enjoyed the episode today, please throw us a like, throw us a follow on YouTube or Instagram. If you have any questions about Liminal, let us know. Would love to get you hooked up with Steven and his team. And have an amazing day. Steven, thank you once again, brother. It's great to see you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Bye.